Hey everyone, it's Mr. Scary Cake, and we're back at it. I'm gonna help little Samantha with her problems. Maybe we'll help her. I'm not actually sure if there are any choices. But last time she was late for the bus, she's cut her hair, she doesn't know what she's doing. But we're gonna solve those problems. Maybe. Samantha stretched, bringing her arms above her head. The carrier bag she held in her right hand rustled, the cans inside clinking together. She had dozed intermittently on the coach, her eyes flickering open every time the vehicle went over a bump in the road, and she now felt even sleepier than she had done before. Samantha didn't like taking naps, even though she often felt tired these days. They never made her feel any better. As such, she had vowed to herself that she was going to rectify this problem, if not for her own sake, then Roberta's. She couldn't imagine that her friend was happy about being used as a pillow. When the bus stopped at a service station, Samantha's first port of call had been a small shop within the building, namely to the aisle that sold energy drinks. She had bought 4 or 5 cans of some random drink. She'd never had that brand before, but the can was decorated in tiger prints, so it must have been effective, right? And was now making her way back to the coach. The sky above her head was overcast, festooned with gray clouds. Though the sky seemed to promise rain, the air was cool and crisp. It was a sharp contrast to the air inside the coach, which was stuffy and oppressive, having been filtered through almost 30 mouths millions upon millions of times. That's a really gross way to think about it. The outside world felt and smelt far cleaner. It was refreshing. Samantha had no real desire to set foot back on the coach again. It felt supremely self-defeating, like bricking oneself up behind a wall. Unfortunately, she did not have much of a choice. With a resigned sigh, Samantha stepped back onto the coach. Instantly, she was greeted by rows of red chairs, lined up neatly beside one another, like unusually garish graves in a graveyard. Geez, Samantha. Samantha was not fond of coaches. She found their movements lurching and unpredictable, and she hated being confined within them. Just how much further did they have to go, anyway? Samantha thought to ask the driver, but he wasn't there. In fact, after scoring the coach, Samantha soon discovered she was one of the only people there, and were probably not early. A couple of girls were sat in the middle of the coach, both asleep, and Samantha could spy a familiar splash of bright blue hair to her left, but that was it. And speaking of bright blue hair, Samantha tensed. Just how many other people at St. Mary's had such an outlandish hair color, anyway? Dyed, obviously. It could only be one person. Tabitha De Quincey, known to most of the girls at St. Mary's as De Quincey, was seated near the front of the coach, hunched over herself as her back made an arch. She does not look like she's wearing the same uniform as everybody else. She was holding something in both her hands, and Samantha noted her shoulders were shaking. Upon further investigation, Samantha discovered, with no small amount of alarm, that De Quincey was crying. She could not see the girl's face, but she could hear her. Small, broken sobs emitted from her mouth, even though it seemed she was trying as hard as possible to rein them in. Samantha's grip on her carrier bag tightened. The plastic crackled. What should she do? She still had not forgotten what had occurred between herself and De Quincey a couple of months ago, and, as close as the two girls had been once, Samantha had been trying her very best to avoid De Quincey ever since that day. Should she continue to uphold her resolution even now? She was the only person right now who knew De Quincey was crying, so did that make it her responsibility? What if something bad had happened to the other girl? The sudden death of a family member, a close friend, a beloved childhood pet. Samantha dithered uncomfortably, unsure. Even though De Quincey was in tears, it had nothing to do with her. She did not owe De Quincey anything, even though she had, Samantha reflected with a twinge of guilt. Borrowed all that money from her last term. Jeez. Moreover, she may have been sobbing over something private, something that she did not want others to know about. Asking her about it could very well make the matter worse. De Quincey was so lost in her mourning she had not even noticed Samantha was there. Samantha could easily have slipped past her, back into her own seat, without her ever knowing Samantha had seen her. It was perfect. It was perfect, so why weren't her feet moving? Oh good, here's the choice. Now, we're going to approach De Quincey, because we do know her. Oh wait, would her conscience let her ignore a girl who had once been her friend? If she'd once been our friend, we're going to go ahead and approach her. Not because we have to, but because we should probably do what we can. I'm just hoping Samantha doesn't mess it up with her clumsy approach. De Quincey? Samantha approached the girl slowly, with the same hesitancy one would use if they were dealing with a rabid dog. Jeez! Samantha! Just what was she expecting, anyway? Did she think De Quincey was going to bite her? The other girl might have been somewhat shameless, but not even she would have done something that outrageous. Not while she was sober, anyway. Or what the... Does she have a... Drunk, on the other hand? No. Samantha did not want to think about that. What age are these girls? She was not thinking about that. Ah. De Quincey lifted her head, blinking up at Samantha. De Quincey lifted her head... Oh, no. Her eyes were red and puffy, swollen from tears, and she looked so very pitiful, Samantha found she could not remain anxious for too long. Why did she have to be afraid of, really? De Quincey looked like a wreck. She looked even more miserable than Samantha had felt these last 3 months, which was quite an achievement. Yay for you, De Quincey. Sam, you're finally speaking to me after all this time. Jeez! I suppose I am. I couldn't just ignore you, not when you look so miserable. It would be quite unforgivable, I think. Even though Samantha had, for a few moments, been pondering whether she should do exactly that. She didn't tell De Quincey that, though. Good girl, Samantha, you're learning something. She didn't need to know. Sam. Oh, Sam. And I thought you would never speak to me again. You really are a sweetheart after all. Well, I feel like we made the right choice here, but I feel like it's for all the wrong reasons. Perhaps. I find it hard to keep grudges. They all seem so pointless. They just make people unhappy. That's true. I've been feeling quite bad over what I did. I know I should not have done it. It's just impulsive, I suppose. De Quincey smiled shakily through her tears, which were still dripping down her cheeks, and sniffed. She wiped her eyes with the back of her arm, perhaps attempting to make herself more presentable, and sat up a little straighter. So, if you don't mind me asking, and the subject matter is not too delicate for you to discuss, that was an excellent approach there, Samantha. Why are you crying? Did something bad happen? Something bad, huh? I guess you could say that. It was pretty bad. What was it? It's hard to explain. I don't know if you would understand. Maybe nobody would. Maybe not. We all grieve in different manners. But if there's anything I can do to help, do not hesitate to ask. Good job, Samantha. Just... Here we go. Little round of applause for you. This very good approach. I can hardly leave you when you look so very unhappy. Thanks. Well, De Quincey gave Samantha a watery smile, her lower lip trembling. I guess there's no easy way to deal with such a thing. The death of a loved one is always painful. It hurts. Though I know it's silly, it really does hurt. How is that silly? No, it's not silly at all. Samantha's eyes widened. So it was as she had thought. De Quincey really had lost a loved one, and recently too, by the sounds of it. You cry all you want, girl. Don't worry about it. Samantha was no stranger to bereavement. Her own father had died when she was only 7 years old, and it was a memory that had stayed with her, following her from place to place more persistently than her own shadow. She can remember sitting in the parish church of Ottery St. Mary, with its vaulted ceiling and stone arches, listening to the vicar as he conducted his service. Samantha had grown restless and started to gnaw at her fingernails during the vicar's speech, nibbling them down into stumps. Her mother had noticed and been less than impressed. Jeez. Through her tears, her mother had taken hold of Samantha's hand, crushing Samantha's fingers beneath her own with a little too much strength, and had hissed at her to just sit still and listen. Jeez, that had stung. Samantha hadn't been fidgeting out of callous carelessness. She had loved her father. She still loved him even now, even though he was dead. She had been fidgeting because she had been anxious, and she had been sad, and she had been trying to distract herself from her own melancholy thoughts, which were growing more and more oppressive by the second. But her mother had not known that. Her mother never knew that. She had never been able to understand how Samantha thought. Samantha didn't want to be like her mother, curt and inconsiderate. Instead, she wanted to be kind and caring. Maybe that was why she had, despite her own worries, chosen to pause and speak to De Quincey. Now that she had committed herself, she could not just turn and leave. I really am sorry for your loss, Tabitha. Good approach. When did you hear the news? Oh, it was fairly recent. Only a few minutes ago, actually. Jeez. Hey, you're gonna go on a field trip. Here's some bad news. Have fun. A few minutes? Samantha frowned. What did De Quincey mean by that? Had one of her family members sent her a text message? That's a dick move to do. That must have been it. They at least deserve a call. If somebody's dead, call the person. Or meet them in person. Don't send a text message. That sounded like quite a harsh way to break the news over a recent death, though. Samantha, we're thinking more like technology was convenient, but it could be so impersonal. That's right. It was so sudden, too. I mean, I already got a few bad endings, but I really thought I could prevent it this time. I was so convinced. What? I thought I made all the correct choices, but in the end it still didn't work. Hannah still died. My cute little Hannah. Why must the world be so cruel? Samantha blinked. Now for the first time she was beginning to wonder whether she had been laboring under a misapprehension. What do you mean bad endings? I don't quite understand. Heh. I thought you wouldn't. That's what I said. Yeah, people don't play these kinds of games very much, so they're pretty obscure. There are some really, really good ones, though. A game? You were crying over a game? That's right. Look. De Quincey proffered the plastic object she was holding in her hand to Samantha. Samantha took it. She had not known what it was at first, being more focused on De Quincey's tear-stained face than when what she had been holding. But now, all at once, she suddenly understood. It was a handheld game console. On the screen was displayed an image of a cute girl. Her eyes were closed and she was lying in a hospital bed, her black hair fanning across her pillow. There was a text at the bottom of the screen, perhaps to explain what was happening in the scene. Samantha wasn't sure. She did not play many games other than fantasy RPGs, and that was only occasionally, because she liked the music and the fantastical environments. Even so, Lillian was far better at those than she was, particularly during the boss battles. Samantha's fingers started to shake. So this whole time she had been comforting De Quincey, not over the death of a friend or family member, but over the death of a girl called Hannah. You still comforted her. Now we just feel better about the situation in hand. You should always approach things more with caution, leaning towards, it being super bad. Because everybody takes things differently. You did everything right, Samantha. Just don't blow up here at the end. A girl who did not exist, never had done, and never would. Well, now she felt like an idiot. Don't feel bad. You didn't know. De Quincey smiled up at Samantha, her head tilted to one side. The worst thing was, there was not a trace of ill intent on De Quincey's face. Her expression was completely innocent. It was clear she had not been intending to trick Samantha. Samantha had simply jumped to conclusions, and had managed to make a fool out of herself. You haven't made a fool out of yourself, it's fine. That always happened. Hey, do you want to borrow this game from me after I'm done? It's really emotional. I cried loads, even though this is my third playthrough. Hannah's death scene gets me every single time. But she isn't real. Hannah might not be real if you want to go by dictionary definitions, but she exists within my heart. In the universe of the game, I am Takumi, and I really am her big brother. I must protect Hannah no matter what. I'd even give my life for her, if necessary. That's how much I love her. You know what? Samantha smiled a strained smile and handed the console back to De Quincey. Her movements were stiff, as though her bones had turned into stone. I think I'll pass, if it's all the same to you. I'm going to go back to my seat now. Good luck with the rest of your game. Aw, Sam, wait up. De Quincey called after Samantha's retreating back, but it was already too late. The tentative peace which had blossomed between the two girls had already met its demise at the hand of a sudden winter snowstorm. What? What? That must be just kind of like figurative. Okay, well, there we go. We've solved another problem, and we solved it very tactfully. Jeez, listen to that music. And it sounds like we're going to get ourselves into another intense situation. Next time, we guide Samantha through the perils of being a person, I guess. Alright. Good night, everybody. Have sweet dreams.